Well, firstly, Pip, these alleged remarks, they seem to be a common occurrence. And previously, I've talked about DEI policy, how it's anything but progressive and inclusive. It's increasingly deeply exclusionary, especially towards white males. We've seen the Royal Air Force get itself in a right tangle when it comes to indulging in unlawful activity through its ethnic minority recruitment drives. So I'm very concerned as well that these comments were allegedly made in a professional forum. This wasn't some kind of leaked email. It's quite remarkable that people who are in very influential positions are willing to speak in such a way openly.
Yeah, Rakib, you mentioned the RAF. I mean, when you hear stories like this, personally, I'm never surprised anymore because we hear it so often when, in actual fact, the RAF had to apologise last year for reverse racism against white people. And isn't it a sad state of affairs that when I heard this story, it wasn't much of a shock because it's become such a norm that white people, particularly straight white men even, are the brunt of a lot of discrimination now in this country. It's a sad state of affairs, isn't it?
No, absolutely. And that irrational hostility towards white British males has become normalised in our public institutions, but also the private sector. And I think that this particular case, for me, I think that when it comes to television and casting, like all other sectors, we need to prioritise meritocracy. It needs to be about ultimately bringing in the most talented people, irrespective of their racial background and indeed their sex. And I think it's important to make the point that the terms such as reverse racism that you use there, Ben, I don't believe in reverse racism. I think it's simply racism, much like positive discrimination. It's quite an extraordinary oxymoron. Discrimination is discrimination, irrespective of whether the person who's being targeted has an ethnic minority background or belongs to the white British mainstream.
When you look at the talent pool across ITV, though, it is actually full of white men. I mean, I know ITV has got a big diversity policy. They've spent millions on all this, but actually they don't seem to employ a lot of black or Asian men.
Well, I think that what's quite interesting is many of these institutions which are supposedly committed to diversity, equality and inclusion, who often hoist themselves by their own identitarian petard, including The Guardian, where you had ethnic minority workers there recently accusing The Guardian of not being particularly sensitive to their own grievances and concerns. So perhaps organisations should set an example. But the point is, Pip, is that I don't want this to be a forced process. You can talk about maybe engaging with communities where there may be untapped potential, but when it comes to excluding entire groups based on race and gender, that's something that I would never possibly support.
Thank you, Dr. Rakib. Appreciate that. In reply, ITV have said the panel discussion included ways to pitch new ideas and ways to further diversify content and talent offerings. We aim to create and showcase content by, with, and for everyone.